Our mission is to peel back the onion and get to know the person behind the persona. This week, I go one-on-one with a rising star in Kansas politics. His time is devoted to effecting positive change in the Wichita community at both the government and personal levels. Brandon Johnson wears two hats in the political arena, one as vice chair of the Kansas Democratic Party and the other as Wichita City Councilman. Elected to serve Wichita's 1st District in 2018, Johnson ran on improving disadvantaged neighborhoods and inspiring entrepreneurism. His ascent to elected office followed his rise as a party activist and mentor to youth in need. He's following in the footsteps of mentors who helped him overcome anger issues as a child and get his life on the right path. But there were still challenges along the way. He became a father at the age of 18 and faced an uncertain future. Nevertheless, he was able to enroll at Friends University, where he studied business and played quarterback. He also attended Wichita State University, where he studied sociology. And now Johnson is making his mark in politics and community service. Coming up, we'll learn what keeps him motivated and inspired to lead. And we'll hear more about his passion for helping steer youth in the right direction. It should be an interesting half hour with Wichita City Councilman Brandon Johnson, one-on-one. Hello and thank you for joining us. I'm Victor Hogstrom. It's a pleasure to welcome Wichita City Councilman Brandon Johnson to this week's edition of One-on-One. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Now, you are originally born and raised Wichitan,
Yep.
born and bred.
Yep.
Tell us about how your story began, because you have now ended up becoming a city councilman, one of the leaders of the community.
Yeah. So I actually started off around 15th and Fountain, which is in District 1. So most of my life has actually been in District 1. From there, I went to public schools here. Had a great time, went to Buckner in elementary school. I went to 3 different middle schools, and in high school I ended up at Northeast Magnet. I played football all through Little League, and Heights was my home school. So I went and played for Heights for 2 years, and then we moved and I played for West for 2 years. So I've been in Wichita my whole life, and then I went to college at Friends and even some time at Wichita State as well.
So if you went to a magnet school, it means that you were above the rest, you were smart.
Yeah, I mean, you know, my grandmother pushed me. My grandmother and grandpa and my mom always tried to make sure that I pushed and strived to be at the top of the class, because they felt education was a way to get out of poverty, and we lived in poverty for several years, me and my mother. So, yeah.
What was that childhood like?
You know, as a kid, you don't notice that you're struggling. So, you know, my mom and dad had got divorced when I was 3. I saw my dad from time to time. Childhood was fun though. I had a dog, you know. We weren't looking at the size of the house. I was able to eat. I didn't have everything I wanted to eat, but, you know, it wasn't until I got older that I realized that, you know, we were poor, and, you know, there were certain times of the month when the fridge was full, and there was other times where we struggled. But
so when you realized that you were not well-to-do, how did that strike you, and what did that mean to you?
It always pushed me to strive for more. I vividly remember, I think I was 11 or 12, and I asked my mother for a few dollars to go get some candy from the gas station. And she kind of looked and she gave me, I think, $1. And I knew that wasn't enough for what I wanted. So that day, I decided to start cutting grass. And since then, I've just always tried to make sure I could work and make money to take care of myself, or when I got older, like now, my family. So it was just something that really drove me to make sure that I didn't have those same experiences as an adult.
But you had a turning point at a very young age in your life. Tell us about that.
I've had multiple turning points. The first one really was age 9. I met my mentor, Tommy Benford. and I had some anger issues from being a single child or a single parent household. And from there, like in school, I would get into scuffles or talk back, and so I needed a mentor. My grandmother knew Mr. Benford, and then I met him. And it took about 2 years for him to talk to me about consequences and thinking things through. And during those 2 years, he really got me involved with a lot of community service. So we did Meals on Wheels, we did neighborhood cleanups, was always involved in that. And it was starting to teach me at a young age the importance of giving back and the importance of community. And as I got older, Mr. Benford was a key figure in making sure that I always remembered that. I had my first summer job working at Lynette Woodard Center. That was because of Mr. Benford. Flash forward 4 years, at 18, 19, I had an opportunity to take over the Summer Youth Employment Training Program, which again, that was Mr. Benford who kind of made that offer. And then once I did that, I could just continue to see how important it was to give back and make sure other people had opportunities. So that was probably the most powerful one, which started pushing me on the trajectory to where I'm at now.
But something else happened as you grew older in your life.
Mm-hmm.
You became a father.
I did.
At age 18. How did that change the plan or the trajectory of your life?
It changed it in the sense of I had to care about someone else. And having a son, being a kid who had, parents who had divorced, and I just knew that I wanted to make sure I was there for my son and that there would be nothing to stop me from being there for him. So. And it came at a hard time. I was at Friends University. I was a freshman in college. I was trying to make sure I got some playing time, and you had the stresses of college and all of that, and then you find out you're a father. So it took a while of adjustment, but it meant that I wasn't just living for me anymore. I had to make sure that my son had a strong foundation to build a successful future.
So what did you do differently in your life as a result of that?
The big thing was just think about him. The things that I was doing at the time was for him. So the more I gave back to the community, I was making the community better for him as he grew up. Working at all the jobs I had multiple jobs for a number of years just to make sure that he had what he needed and could have food. And so again, like everything that I did at that point really became for him. Even football, if I could have made it to the NFL, I would have had more money to take care of him and provide for him. So he really became that driving force to make sure that, I held myself accountable.
So yeah, you're talking about football. Tell us about those playing days. You played for Friends and other in high school teams.
Yeah.
Tell us about those.
So my football career was interesting. In Little League, I played for the Mustangs mostly, and I don't think they're around anymore. And on the Mustangs, I played both sides of the ball. But when I got to high school, I wanted to play receiver. I'd finally gotten skinny. I was a chubby kid. Had a little bit of speed, and I remember tryouts for freshman year. We had a quarterback that couldn't throw the ball to me, and I would get out and run a 10 and out, and he just couldn't get it there. And I got frustrated and said I wanted to try to throw it. And unbeknownst to them, I always threw to myself just to try to get better. I always try to improve things with myself. So it's a little weird to see me throwing the ball to myself, but it really helped strengthen my arm. So I hit a guy on a 15 and in, perfect stride. It was probably a 40-yard pass. And that day the coach was like, "Hey, you want to play quarterback?"
Oh, wow.
So I did freshman year. In my freshman year, I started freshman, sophomore, and a few JV games. And I played quarterback the rest of my high school career. At Friends, I was recruited as a quarterback. Then there was a JV game where I played running back and had a pretty good game, and the head coach was actually there, and I didn't realize it at first. And he came up and told me to consider moving to running back. So I did, and the next year I started running back at Friends. And then I went on to actually coach at Friends for 4 years when I was done.
Oh.
So I had the honor of coaching with Coach Monty Lewis, who's one of the winningest coaches in the KCAC history, and just a great guy.
But today you continue to, despite your good and bad experiences, you turn that into a positive thing to help mentor young men and boys.
Yeah.
How did you get into that, and why, and how challenging is that?
The why goes back to Tommy. Tommy gave a lot of years of his life to making sure young men could have better lives and make better decisions. And he always put me in positions to do that. And so again, like running the summer job program, we had both young men and women in there, but I would talk to young men about the value of seeing value in yourself, you know, making sure that you are always presentable, pulling your pants up in public. You know, you can do that with friends, but, you know, don't get too crazy with it. Watch your language. You never know who's watching you. And these are all things that were poured into me from Mr. Benford and other folks, and I wanted to make sure I shared that same information so that young men can have the same opportunities. I also worked in a few group homes as well with young men, and would always let them know, like, the mistakes that you make now or in the past don't define your future. You have an opportunity to rebuild, and it'll be tough. You know, you'll need a hand up, you'll need some help. Don't think you do all this on your own. You know, everyone needs some help, but it was always important to me to continue to give back as Tommy gave to me and see if we could help as many people as possible.
And determination plays a very important role in this whole thing.
Oh yeah, you have to be, and that's something we say and we try to live through example. I mean, to win a city council race, you have to be determined, you have to be focused, and continue to stay on message and not let things distract you.
So tell us, how did you get into politics now? You did all this other stuff growing up, and at 31, you got elected to the Wichita City Council.
Yeah.
You're now 33. You've been in it 2 years. How did you get elected? No, how did you get into politics is the question.
That's a long journey. Someone brought that up to me when I was 21 or 22, running the summer job program, just saying, you know, you're doing a lot to help these young people. Be great to have somebody like you in office. And I always said no. I did not want to be in politics. I didn't want to be an elected person. Dr. King is an inspiration of mine. He was never in elected office and helped change this country. So I didn't feel like I needed to be in office. But a lot of things also happened around that same time. I was arrested when I was 19. There was an incident at the Riverfest, and I had called out what I saw was, or felt was, some excessive force. Well, then I was kind of told, well, if I didn't shut up, that would happen to me. And ultimately I didn't shut up, and it did happen to me. And at that point, I kind of became an activist. You know, I read about it, but, you know, you see the things Dr. King talked about, and I went through a phase where I didn't like law enforcement, but there was 3 guys I trusted through Tommy that came in and talked to our group that were all law enforcement officers that looked like me. Well, they kind of challenged me to, you know, I could either be mad at law enforcement or I could do something to change it. And so I took that route. So we began to push back and look into statistics and talk about policy changes and making sure these things didn't happen. I was one of a group that was really pushing hard for police body cameras. We see how great those are for our police department now. So that really came through activism, the work we were doing in the community, and people would always tell me I should consider running for office. And my nose stopped after a few elected officials said it to me, and I got permission from my wife, so she said I could. And we started to explore what that looked like to see if I would get support, and ultimately when I did a soft announcement, I got a lot of support, a lot more than I thought I would get. And then when we ran, it was the same thing, but I think our campaign was successful because it was based on community. It wasn't just my ideas, it was what I had been working in the community with and listening to people about.
You know, when I first met you a little over 3 years ago at a meeting at the old library, and when I listened to you, I got the impression that you were planning a run for something. And that motivation was city council. You just told the story.
Yeah.
So now that you were elected, you've been in it 2 years, taking the place of Lavonta Williams, who is from your district also.
Yeah.
Has that motivation changed?
No, it's still the same. You know, there's a lot of work to do in the community, and I think the stress and pressure is a lot more because now I'm in the position to do something about it. Whereas before, I was in a place to help empower other folks to speak up and try to get policymakers to understand and change things. But now I am that policymaker. So the knowing all of the issues that I see, which is much broader than what I thought before, and still trying to empower others to see that community can do this. It's not always on the elected official, and try to be a partner in those solutions. That part is stressful, knowing that, you know, things are still happening that you know, folks need help with, affordable housing, business help, all of that stuff, you know, that weighs on you, but still motivated to try to make a difference.
So how do you make that difference? Because we know that it takes a majority vote on the city council to really get anything done. It's not one person's decision.
Yeah.
So how do you make the difference for your district?
So there's two ways to go with that. You know, I have a great relationship with all my council colleagues and the mayor. When it comes to a needed, necessary council vote, it's talking to them about the significance and importance of whatever that issue might be and how it is beneficial not only to District 1 but the city of Wichita. But a lot of the power that an elected official has is not the votes, it's the collaborative piece. Okay. And if you can build relationships and rely on those to get things done. So when you look at, you know, we have a significant need for minority business development in District 1, especially in the Black community. Well, the Founders Grove that came about from Commerce Bank wasn't a council decision. It was talking about an issue that Commerce Bank was having and possibly addressing an issue that we saw the community was having, and bringing all the folks to the table and seeing, you know, how can we address this and get this done? And they came up with a solution that works. And now we have a Founders Grove entrepreneurial hub right there at 21st and Grove. When you look at food deserts, we're having conversations with business owners, suppliers, and trying to figure out how can we get something opened here in the community. That's not a council decision. So the ability of using this seat to bring people together to talk about issues is the real power. And that's something that doesn't always have to go back to the other council members. But when it does, we have those conversations and see how we can benefit the community.
So what excites you most today as a city councilman and a Kansan?
Well, if we say here in Wichita, it's just the potential for growth and change in our community. We're at what I believe is a cusp of change. We have West Bank development with the baseball stadium, private development that's going to happen over there. We've got East Bank conversations going on right now with the Riverfront Legacy Master Plan. I mean, that whole area can change in the next 10 to 15 years, and we're at a point where we can make decisions on that right now. We've got other issues, well, we've got issues and opportunities. So one major issue is affordable housing, but through the federal opportunity zone law, there might be some opportunities to align incentives in neighborhoods and really get more affordable housing for people so we can get them out of some of the homes that they're renting and paying much more for. You look at the Habitat for Humanity model, you can pay $500, $550 a month for a house that you own. And there's people in the same neighborhood paying $750, $800 a month for a house that they rent that's not the same quality because the Habitat house is brand new. Right. So what we're trying to do is find ways to get more people into home ownership so they can build that generational wealth and equity and pass it down to their kids and grandkids. And that all starts oftentimes just from owning a home.
You have one more term that you're qualified to run for after the first term expires. You are involved in local politics and statewide politics. So after your second term, if you decide to run again as a city councilman and you have served that second term, what's next for Brandon Johnson?
That's a great question. I get that all the time. I stopped saying no because I'm here as an elected official. So I don't say no to anything. But right now, truly the focus is making sure all of these issues get some type of foundation to be addressed through one term, because you're not guaranteed a second. And in 21, we will run for re-election, and we'll see if the voters choose to give me a second term. And if so, we're going to continue to build foundation to make sure these issues get addressed. And then from there, we'll see. We'll see what my wife says. If she says that I have permission to do something else, then we can entertain that and see. But really, it's getting that foundation done, because I grew up in District 1, I live here, and I'd just be happy. I'd be happy and content if we got issues solved, the foundation built, and I never did politics again. And if I did continue, I can continue building on that progress.
Well, if you didn't do politics again, then what would you do?
I would find a way to go back in community and continue to empower people. I've learned that you need a little more money than I was making, so maybe start a business or find somewhere where I could go to really do this work effectively. But I love working in the community as is, so either way it goes, I'll be out in the community helping out.
What's the biggest challenge you see facing Wichita today?
So you'll hear a lot about talent retention. We have a lot of young people that don't necessarily want to stay here. because of a lack of a lot of things. I think this Riverfront Legacy Master Plan is going to be key in that. Young people are watching, they're engaged, and if we don't do anything or we do something that's kind of settling, we'll still have that talent retention issue.
And then, by the way, that is in your district,
it
right?
Is, yeah.
Okay.
The Riverfront is all in District 1. So I'm hoping that happens. But for me, the key issues are looking at affordable housing, because there's a lot of folks who need quality housing that don't have it. When you look at our transit system, we desperately need to have a second shift. We need to get into a grid model, and that's something that we've been talking about. We're working on it, but those are two challenges. And then when you look at the employment market, making sure that areas where you have low-income folks have opportunities to have those jobs as well. Those are conversations that we don't always hear, but that's what affects the folks who are here in Wichita, and we want more people to come here. But if we're not taking care of those issues and the people that we have, then why would folks want to come here? So those are the conversations that we continue to have.
But I didn't hear you mention jobs.
It's jobs in those areas. We have a lot of jobs available, but again, when you have employers that want you to have a bachelor's degree for a position that you probably don't need a bachelor's degree for, just to have that educational standard, and sometimes in master's degrees, the pay is not there for that master's degree.
Right.
So we're paying low wages here, and Wichita has this reputation of being a low cost of living city, but that's a negative view sometimes, because then that means it's okay to pay you $7 an hour, $8 an hour, or maybe $10 an hour, and it's not really enough to take care of your family. You need multiple jobs, or you just have to work all day. So jobs are not necessarily the issue, but the wages are the issue, and then making sure that areas that need it are targeted. We, Spirit made that announcement of 1,000 new jobs, and we're working with WSU Tech, and through some of the Hyatt dollars we had left for District 1 and District 3, we made scholarships available for folks in District 1 and District 3, but we targeted zip codes like 67214 to make sure those folks had an opportunity to go get that scholarship, increase income, and have a better life.
Right. All right, let's do a little lightning round, quick round. You finish the sentence that I will start. I wish I could forget the time that I
wish I could forget the time that I fumbled the ball at Friends University. Coach Lewis got on me about that.
By the time I'm 65, I would like to have accomplished
raising my kids successfully, having them in college successfully, and still working.
Good. A good friend is?
Someone you can trust.
A good person is?
Someone who cares about others.
A good wife is?
Danielle, when she says I'm right. I'm mostly right, but she won't always say it.
A good parent is?
Someone who is looking out for the betterment of their kid, but and recognizing you don't have to be the friend, you need to be the parent to guide them in the right direction.
You're very wise. You're right. I agree. The worst thing that ever happened to me was?
Oh, that's tough. Quickly, I blocked the wrong person at Friends and the team.
It's all football.
It is. And Garrett Labus still, he's here and he might see this.
You blocked your own team member?
No, I blocked the wrong guy. We had changed up blocking assignments, and I went left and I should have went right, and the quarterback got sacked and fumbled, and for about 2 weeks, that's all I heard from the team. Just, you're going the right way and practicing at practice. So yeah, that was bad.
All right. My biggest challenge is?
Balance between home life, family, this job. This job is very demanding, and being successful at all of those.
The nicest thing that ever happened to me was?
People seeing value in me and letting me know that I was somebody. I wasn't just another kid, and that means a lot at a young age. And although I am, just another person, it made me think about myself differently.
All right. My biggest secret is?
My biggest secret is maybe a few of them. So a lot of people don't know I played football. When I was at Buckner, we did ballet, and people wouldn't know that I did that. And
did you wear the tights and everything too?
Yeah, they made you do it, and the shoes and all of that.
The point shoes?
Yeah, we had to do all of that.
The tutus?
Yeah, the plies and, and all
goodness.
of that stuff. Yeah.
When you dress up in one of those, I'd like to see you again.
That probably won't happen again.
All right, let's talk about your family. Tell us about your family. We do know that you had a son at 18.
Yeah.
Have you added to the family? Have you?
I have. Since 18, I've gotten married. My wife, Danielle, works at Wichita State University in the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. She's the assistant director there. So we have our 15-year-old Kyrie. We have a 6-year-old daughter named Aria, and she goes to Buckner like I did. And we have a baby who just turned 1 a couple weeks ago.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. So we've got 3 kids. We've got a beagle, and the 1-year-old is the exciting person at the house. She went from crawling to jogging, not walking, and now she runs around. So we watch her run around every day, and she goes back and forth with her sister and brother, and then comes to us when she wants something. But yeah, it's fun.
Councilman Johnson, how would your friends describe you?
Depends on who you talk to. Some would say I'm talkative. I think most would say I'm quiet. I am quiet most of the time. I don't talk a lot. Maybe driven and determined. I'm always working on something, so that probably would say that. And past that, I don't know. That's a good question.
After politics, what's the plan?
That's still an ongoing conversation. You know, we're young. Danielle has her own dreams and aspirations as well, and I want to make sure that equitably we're both chasing. I would hate to, be 65 and look back and Danielle tell me, well, I didn't do something I wanted to do because you were doing this. So it's a conversation we'll keep having to see, what are her goals and aspirations, and if there's an opportunity to do more in politics while she's achieving her thing, then definitely. And if not, we have to balance. It can't just all be about me.
Have you formed a philosophy of life at 33?
No, but I tend to live around, it's wonderful to do things for others who can never repay you. You just do it because it's good,
right,
and the right thing to do. And you don't do it to get accolades. You don't do it for yourself. It's just the right thing to do, and you help people out. And when you help people, if you ever need help, I'm sure you can find it.
Right. City Councilman Brandon Johnson, father, husband, and mentor, thank you so much for joining us.
I appreciate it.
And thank you for watching this week's edition of One on One. If you have a question or comment, send us an email. oneonone@kpts.org is our email address. Until next time, I'm Victor Hogstrom, and I'll see you again soon.